9:05. Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Hope you're having a fantastic morning. Joining us to give us a little bit of background and what the headlines are saying and his opinion on everything. Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. Matt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Chad. Good morning.
Well, it's like I said, Matt, since last week, the news, maybe about this time last week, the news has really been dominated by House Democrats pursuing this impeachment quest that they are on. Matt, it seems to me that just from what I've read, the Democrats have bitten off a lot more than they can chew on this issue. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's generally what I think as well. There's so many different facets to this story that it takes a minute to kind of walk through them. In a way, the Democrats are really kind of half pregnant on impeachment. I mean, the news headlines would tend to try to tell you that they're all on board, but they're not on board. They haven't taken a full House vote to authorize an impeachment inquiry. All you have is the Speaker of the House who said she's in favor of it, which has, I guess, enabled some of the committees to begin working, especially the House Intelligence Committee, which is going to take the lead on this issue. But keep in mind, they've still got to vote to approve the inquiry, and then they've eventually got to vote for impeachment on the floor. And I don't think they're there yet. I mean, I think they're going to try to get more information, but this, to me, is going to, I think, break down on the same partisan lines that we've seen almost all the other issues break down on, and that is, Trump's base will stick with him, the Democratic base will stick in favor of impeachment, and then we'll see, if independents break sharply one way or the other. The Democrats want to move quickly, but I would point out that the Nixon impeachment took 8 months, the Clinton impeachment took 5 months. We are basically 1 day short of 4 months from the Iowa caucuses, and Thanksgiving is 7 weeks away. And they've, sort of thrown Thanksgiving out there as the deadline. Look, let me be clear, Chad. I wish Trump hadn't mentioned Biden in the Ukraine call. But, if something meets the standard of being inappropriate, that does not mean it means the standard of being impeachable. The idea that they would impeach the President of the United States over a phone call with a foreign leader, to me, is ridiculous. They are, I think, protesting a bit too much about questions about Biden's activities in Ukraine while he was the sitting vice president and while his son was making $50,000 a month in a country he had no experience in and in his industry he had no experience in. The average salary in Ukraine is $200 a month, just to give you an idea of the scale difference there. So, look, the Dems are going to push forward on this. It was a tell, that Pelosi announced she was going to support the inquiry before she had any facts whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Remember, when she called for it, the transcript had not yet been released, the whistleblower complaint had not yet been released, and the Director of National Intelligence, the acting director, had not testified yet. So they've been looking for any possible reason to impeach Trump because their base is demanding it. And as I said on Twitter over the weekend, I think this is because they think Trump's going to get reelected, and this is the best way they have to try to prevent him from being reelected.
Yeah. So yesterday, Matt, and I mean this seems like it's very coordinated. The leaks 100%. That are coming out. I mean this is very coordinated. It seems. Yesterday, Bill Barr got pulled into all of this with the New York Times coming out with a story that what he was. I guess basically the president was asking Barr to ask other countries to look into what happened with the 2016 election, even though other countries had already offered help?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the New York Times story that broke last night that got a lot of attention about Australia was really just not news.
Right.
The U.S. Justice Department cooperates with foreign governments all the time in sharing information related to law enforcement. Look, the Democrats really don't want Barr to move forward with his investigation as to the origins of the basically the Russia investigation, and he's been basically kind of wrapping up that work. In fact, someone told me a couple days ago he's overseas. He's overseas this week, finishing some of that work with some foreign governments. Lindsey Graham last night on Hannity was talking about. He's going to send a letter today to the governments of the UK, Australia, and Italy, encouraging that they provide all information related to the origins of the investigation. So, look, they are clearly trying to attack Barr and undermine his credibility before whatever DOJ announces. Keep in mind, you have two products coming soon that are going to be pretty important. The first is the long overdue Inspector General report of the Justice Department, which I think is going to identify specific individuals who really did inappropriate things in the process of this. It could involve John Brennan or Clapper, the former National Intelligence Director, the former CIA Director in the Obama years. It could specifically identify, high-ranking or middle-level FBI agents and others. We'll have to see. The second, though, is this investigation that the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut is doing, John Durham, which has been working its way through as well. And I think that's looking at potential FISA abuse related to the FISA warrants that were sought and received on Carter Page and others. So those two documents are really going to raise a lot of questions about the intelligence community in those years going after Trump. And that's why I think the Democrats have, I was going to say manufactured, but that's how they've created and advanced this new impeachment thread. They know the Russia collusion delusion is going to be, really destroyed even further when these new reports come out, and so they've moved their target. I mean, remember, Chad, 2 weeks ago, most House Democrats thought the Russia story and the obstruction allegations was the worst thing in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. You can't get a Democrat to even recognize those issues anymore. Now in 8 days or whatever it is, they believe the Ukraine issue is the most important issue in the history of the world. So, it's a little bit of a Chicken Little routine that kind of gets tiresome at some point. And meanwhile, nothing's getting done. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement is still being delayed by Pelosi. They're not doing anything on drug prices. You have a spending deadline here in a couple of weeks, and the government will shut down if they don't come together. There's an opportunity to do an infrastructure bill, a bipartisan infrastructure bill. But President Trump is not going to negotiate with Democrats while they're trying to end his presidency in what amounts to a recall election 400 days before the 2020 presidential election.
Yeah, visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, we both know, backroom politics, whether it's on the statewide or federal level, it gets ugly. Is this backroom, deep state, whatever you want to call it, politics now playing out in front of everybody? Is that what we're really looking at?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, and I think, look, the point you made earlier is right. I think it's important that people out there listening really try to be sophisticated as they see, news alerts, breaking news alerts, headlines in major newspapers. You always have to think about who benefits and who's pushing different storylines. Who's the target? How solid is the information? Yeah. What's the real purpose of the story? It's not, news is not simply, something new happened and a major news organization is going to report it. I mean, for some organizations, that's certainly the case. But the Washington Post and New York Times and CNN have agendas. And they're essentially working hand in hand with Democratic operatives to achieve their goals. There's just no doubt about that. And that's what's happening here. This is all choreographed. They're working together. They're trying to, find a stronger case for impeachment. But, the challenge is, even if they were able to impeach Trump with a majority vote in the U.S. House, which I think is still really up in the air, they need a two-thirds vote in the Senate, which would require 20 U.S. Senate Republicans to join with all the Democrats. I mean, they don't have enough. They may get one, maybe at most two Republicans right now. They don't have enough to get 20. Yeah. And I don't even know what would be enough of a serious threat to get to that level. It would have to be. I mean, you'd have to have like 80% of the public supporting impeachment to get 20 Republicans. So this is ultimately going nowhere. Yeah. And Democrats are going to let this define their entire 2-year majority in the U.S. House. If they think that's good politics, I think they've really misjudged this. And I think there's an opportunity now for Republicans to take the House back at the national level and win the 19 seats they need to do it.
Well, let's talk about the House. We had another Texas congressman who said, all right, I'm done. You weren't really surprised by it. A lot of folks weren't too surprised by Congressman Mac Thornberry saying that he is done with Congress. He's retiring after, 25 years in Congress. Long time. Some have labeled this the Texodus. What do you think? I know you were critical of some Texas Republicans for quitting earlier in the year. What do you think about the latest retirement and how it impacts just the Republicans moving forward into 2020?
Yeah, look, Thornberry is a very widely respected member. He's the top Republican on the House Armed Services Committee. He's term limited as the top Republican on that committee next year. So he would basically be going back to being a backbench member rather than having a leadership position. And so you kind of get to a point in Congress where you feel like you've done about all you can do, and that by staying you actually kind of lose influence relative to where you were. And so there had been chatter in political circles that Thornberry was likely to retire. I put his retirement and Mike Conaway of Midland's retirement in a separate category from the rest because first of all, Thornberry is in the single most Republican congressional district in the country. Okay, so he's not jeopardizing anything.
Yeah.
And Conaway's district is solidly Republican. Those districts aren't going to change hands. So when I raise questions about the timing of retirements for the rest, it's because the other four Republican retirements could weaken the hand of the Republicans. I guess Bill Flores would be the third I'd put in that first category because his district is safe. So there's really just three with Kenny Marchant, Will Hurd, and Pete Olson, and those districts now are a little bit more ripe for Democrats because we don't know who the Republican nominees are going to be, and they're less well known. They're going to have to need more help raising money. But those are still seats that we can hold. In fact, I would argue we're going to hold at minimum two of them and maybe all three. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But Thornberry's retirement I don't think matters very much. And I think you really do think he's the last Republican retirement in Texas for this cycle. The last two that people have been mentioning are Michael McCall and John Carter. I think they both are running serious reelection campaigns and raising strong money at this point and seem pretty committed. So I think the Texas story has reached its peak. I think people are overinterpreting how important it is.
Before I let you go, Matt, what do you make of President Trump and the Trump campaign yesterday announcing they're coming back to Texas, holding a big rally over at the American Airlines Center in Dallas?
Yeah, look, they're trying to do one of these a week. I think he's got one in Minnesota, I think, the week before that. These rallies are basically, opportunities not just for the candidate, for the president to get his message out and punch back against the media, but really more so they're data collection extravaganzas, basically. I mean, they're collecting hundreds of thousands of people's contact information and cell phone numbers, for rallies that can hold 20 or 25 or 30,000 people. Look, I think it's a recognition that Trump wants to turn out his base in Texas, and he's reminding people of that. This isn't just about urban Dallas, even though the location of the venue is downtown. I mean, he'll be pulling people from all over that region.
Yeah.
It's just a reminder how important Texas is, and he doesn't want to forget about Texas and doesn't want anyone to think he's forgetting about it.
Yeah. All right. Matt, tell folks about your newsletter and your podcast.
Yeah, the newsletter is called Must Read Texas. We take all the top news from around the state, put it into one clean, easy-to-read email, and send it out every morning before 9 a.m. You can sign up for a free one-week trial at mustreadtexas.com. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. It's in the iTunes Store, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on Spotify. We will have a conversation with Michael Steele, not the former RNC chairman Michael Steele, but Michael Steele, who worked for Speaker John Boehner and worked in Congress for many years, about the impeachment issue this week. So keep an eye open for that.
Very good. Matt, as always, appreciate your time.
Thank you. See ya.
Have a good one. That's Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. News Talk KFYO.